These are the most common mistakes that I see dudes make when they're going out to do some land nav. Coming up. Hey, welcome to the channel, friends. As always, man, I am super stoked to see you. I really am. A beautiful day out this morning, and Kyle asked a really good question of what are some of the most common mistakes that I see dudes make over the years when it comes to going out and doing some land nav. Like, you got a couple principles in your mind, you're doing okay, but what are some of the things that we can put in our kit bag? Some lessons learned, if you will, some after-action review comments of watching dudes going out. What are some of the things that they should have done that would have been a little bit better, that would have set them up for success? So I think it's a great question. It's one that we're going to spend a few minutes out here talking about. So the first one, I think, is that we make a habit of getting in too big of a hurry, especially when it comes to an examination, or if it's an assessment and selection, anything of this nature. And we feel that we have a time pressure and a time hack that we have to meet. And so we get in a rush and we start making mistakes. Now, I've shown you before how big of a mistake just a small smidge can make. Just the smallest smidge can make a huge mistake, right? So what we need to do on the front end is take 5 extra minutes to measure twice and cut once. When you got your protractor down and you're plotting a point, plot your point, plot your next point, get your distance, get your direction, write it all down, and before you step out, do it again. Take the extra 5 minutes it would take to get everything done and redone, so that you know that as you start stepping out, you can trust what you wrote down on your piece of paper for your distance and that direction. You see, the more errors we can take out on the front end, the more accurate we'll be on the back end. In that 5 minutes that it'll take to do that, it's probably not even going to take you 5 minutes. But that 5 minutes, it can save you hours on the back end. Hours. So take the time to measure twice and cut once. That's pro tip number 1, lesson learned. So lesson number 2, I think, is you have to understand that if you're given a point A, right, you know where you're at, and you're trying to go to your next point, and we'll just say it's 700 meters out. 700 meters is a long stinking ways. And there are a few land nav courses out there. Well, there's one in particular that may give you some points that are even further out. But typically, the Army standard, when you go to any land navigation course, whether it's especially the NCUAS when they were running, is 600 to 800 meters is going to be your average for testing and evaluation purposes. You'll find some that are going to be further, but the big point is 800 meters out and out, man. If you're drawing a straight line, you're doing something wrong. You're doing something wrong, unless you have some really open terrain and you don't have trees like these things. And can you imagine trying to push through 600 meters in a straight line through vegetation like this? And not only the vegetation, but man, there's hills and crevices and spurs all up and down and around, and you can't walk in a straight line for 600 meters. Hell, sometimes you can't even walk in a straight line for 50 meters. You're bobbing and weaving. You're going around a tree this way, you're going around a tree this way, you're drifting off this way, and you're coming out and you're drifting off this way. Because the train's going to pull us in one direction or another. So as you're looking at the map, you need to take the time during that 5 minutes I told you about. Take the time and look at your map and read it. What are some key man-made terrain features? What are some key natural terrain features that you can use to your advantage? You see, because if there's a road intersection that's 200 meters between it and the point that I'm trying to go to, and I know that I can get to that road intersection, then I'm going to move to that road intersection and move off that 200 meters, as opposed to trying to keep a distance of 600, 700, 800, 1,000 meters or more, moving in a straight line. You can't do it, man. So break it up into smaller legs. You know, and I've seen more dudes, and they end up in their, 300 meters off their point, and they wonder how they got to where they're at. And it's because as they're moving through some brush, they got turned around and disoriented, and then they look back down at their compass, and they get back on their azimuth of, let's just say 85 degrees. But the 85 degrees was here, and now they're moving 85 degrees, and they're parallel, right, with how they're running, but they're moving at two separate end states up here, right? Because they came off, and then, I figured out I was right, and got back on, and then come back up. And what happens if they do that again and again? And what happens if, when they should have measured twice to cut once, but they only measured once, and their measurements were off? And then it's all even more compounded. So man, shorten it up as best as you can to just a couple hundred meters if the terrain is nice and thick like this. So similarly, or conversely, I don't even know, we'll see how this goes. Another mistake that I see dudes make is they don't trust themselves, they only trust their compass. So it's like this. Tell me if you've seen this dude. Yeah, sure, you've seen it, man. We've all seen these dudes, right? They only trust their compass, man. And yes, you do need to trust your instruments, right? That's another key mistake. People don't trust their compass. But sometimes people over trust their compass, and they don't trust themselves and their ability to get out. And that's because they don't practice enough, right? They don't practice enough. They still got the training wheels on. So don't be that dude. You got to be able to look out, and hopefully you got a steering mark out in front of you that you can walk to, that's on your azimuth, that's not going to move. You're going to know that you're going to be able to recognize it when you get closer. Or maybe you have some major terrain features that you can just move out to, right? Or maybe you have a buddy and you can leapfrog your way down, whatever the case is. But don't just look down. You're going to end up running into a dead gum tree. So there's another tip for you. So I think, let me put this guy down. I think in general, those are probably some of the bigger mistakes that I've seen over the years of some dudes making. And this is not algebra, man. It really isn't. It's just, it takes us out of our comfort zone, especially anymore, where some dude's natural comfort zone is behind a television with a controller in their hands, and that's all they do, and that's all they know. This is a sport. This is an activity. This is a recreation. This is a survival skill set that you have to practice. You have to get out and practice. And if you don't do that, you're going to set yourself up for failure. So I think when we do get out, it's that lack of confidence is ultimately the one thing that we have to get over. We have to be able to trust ourselves, but that means we have to set up small wins. I was just talking to a dude who's trying to get ready to go to assessment and selection. And he's asking me, he's actually stationed here locally on JBLM. He's like, hey, Stoke, man, what can I do? I said, well, you got to set yourself up with some small wins, right? The STAR course is no joke if you don't know what you're doing. But if you start setting yourself up with some small wins, if you can move out 200 meters in a straight line, and you can trust your pace count, and you can trust your distance and your direction, boom, win. Now repeat that and do it again in some different terrain, some different light conditions. Boom, do it again. Now exceed it and go 400 meters. Go 600 meters. Move from one side of the training area to another and back, and see if you can end up in the exact same spot without cheating on yourself. You start doing these things and you're going to be doing all right. So you got to give yourself some small wins. So if you're trying to teach yourself, go to some place where you have some natural parameters, so that way you don't get lost, because you don't want to become a statistic. And just set up a course and start doing some different things. If you're trying to teach some dudes on how to do this, same thing, man. Set up something that's easy. It can be challenging, but set it up so that it's easy to build confidence. Every win matters. Every win matters. Every win matters. And every loss, I can't speak, every loss matters too. Which is why we need to drill for the win. Hey, I hope you enjoyed the content of the video. If you did, make sure you like it, subscribe to the channel, and click that notification bell so you can stay up to date on some future content. As always, if you're looking for any gear, you can look down in the description below and link you off over to my Amazon influencer page where you can find all kinds of gear from food, fire, water, shelter, first aid, navigation. You think of it and it's there. And we will keep this conversation rolling. And as always, until then, you can stay stoked.